Welcome to the Building Bite Podcast, a podcast for construction contractors, owners, and insurance professionals, where you hear from experts on key topics to help you be successful. I'm Valerie Bono, one of the show's hosts and head of marketing and communications at Proactive, and I'm here with my co-host, Mike Diercksen, who is the senior consultant of innovation and content solutions, and our guest, a dynamic leader across the construction and development industries at large, Alexis McGuffin. Alexis is the Director of Business Development at Suffolk Construction. Alexis, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Valerie. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be speaking with you both today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. Mike, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Valerie. Really excited to have Alexis on the show. She's got so many great things to offer, so I'm really excited to have this conversation.
I'm really excited about this topic. It's called Endlessly Curious, Solving Puzzles in the Built Environment. And Alexis, I'm super excited to have you on the show. As you know, when I reached out to you, you've had one of the most dynamic and interesting careers across the AEC industry, in an industry that's highly underrepresented with women. And in fact, according to recent statistics reported by the Construction Dive, women still make up only about 10% of the construction workforce from field to office. And on the other hand, you've held various positions as an estimator. You've been a project manager, then you switched to BIM Integration, and you've led as the VDC Director. And now you're the Director of Business Development for Suffolk Construction. So before we get any further in the main topic, can you share with our audience a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today?
Sure, absolutely. So in school, I started out with software engineering with a focus on digital arts, really just because I liked math and art. That led me into architecture and ultimately finishing in construction management, which at the time didn't really make a lot of sense, but I just really enjoyed the process of solving puzzles and new challenges and any type of engineering. From there, I went to work with Bovis Lend-Lease in DC as a project manager. And to be honest, I was about ready to kind of exit the industry and do something different when BIM and VDC started happening. And I thought, I'm really interested in that. Let me kind of talk my way into that group. So I did. And I did BIM in the DC region for a number of years, and then relocated to New York, at which point I took over management of virtual design and construction group for the Northeast, and really just had so much fun with it. And I was allowed to kind of, as I saw the industry evolving and the way that BIM and VDC were moving more towards digital engineering, I was allowed to kind of flex and evolve that group to kind of encompass everything from R&D, tech pilots. And I did a lot of internal sales. So my group sat within the construction business, but we sold ourselves to the development business and also the investment group. And so it was just allowed to kind of naturally evolve that group. And in doing those internal sales and then external sales, talking with clients, it actually was a natural progression into a business development role, because what we saw was business development being less about cocktail and golf and it really being about, what can you do for me? What are the differentiators? And being a trusted advisor to our clients in technology and what they should be looking towards and evolving their business towards.
Yeah, that's awesome. Alexis, you mentioned a lot of things in that natural progression and everything. And I'm curious then, so you've kind of gone through this path. Why Suffolk? What about the opportunity at Suffolk what drew you there and obviously has kept you there?
Yeah, from a VDC and tech standpoint, I'd always been aware of Suffolk and what they were doing. And I was really interested in John Fish's vision and how he was investing and approaching in technology within the business. And also, we are extremely well established in Boston and Florida markets and California, but the opportunity to build something here in New York and to articulate and create that value for our clients was just an opportunity that I just couldn't pass up.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, Suffolk is certainly a leader of all things in the construction industry. So, and that was a recent transition, right? You recently joined Suffolk. So can you share a little bit about what you're doing in this new role and some of the fun and innovative initiatives that you get to work on?
Sure. So, as director of business development for the New York office, I'm responsible for building and maintaining relationships and providing strategic direction to help Suffolk grow and profit. But like I mentioned, one of my main focuses is creating and articulating the value proposition around our technology for our clients and just helping build the business and the brand here and supporting and connecting those tech pieces out to the market locally.
Alexis, can you elaborate on what Suffolk is doing in the tech space?
Absolutely. So we're first and foremost a builder, but we've set up an infrastructure around technology and innovation that creates this, what I consider an elegant flywheel to take ideas from within and outside of the business and take them from very, very early concept all the way to, full integration within the business. And that begins with Suffolk Tech, which is our venture capital business focused on emerging technologies. So we partner with early stage startups, and through a program called Boost, we actually bring them in physically under our roof and we take them through an incubator program. And what that does is it actually formally solves one of the issues we've been seeing in the industry, which is all these brilliant minds rushing to our industry, recognizing that we need help to improve efficiency and productivity, but they don't necessarily know how to build. So by coming and working with us in our Boost program, we're able to provide them with all these expertise around how to build and help shape their technology. So we're giving them that information and then we're able to invest in them, and it's a mutually beneficial agreement, and we help foster their development and entry into the marketplace. And then the way that we actually pilot and test these for our business is through our collab program or our collab group. It's a group of people that sit within each office, and that they have the ability to, they create this innovation pathway. So they can take something from white paper to one pilot, an office, and then a national deployment. It's truly integrated into the business and then results in an enterprise agreement for our clients, which means we can get them, better pricing on these technologies. And then through this, we collect all of this data through our data team, and we're able to then leverage that data throughout our projects and to do predictive analytics on schedules and costs, and just to help push our projects and our project teams towards smarter decision making.
Wow, between the Boost program and Suffolk Tech, it sounds like you guys are doing so many incredible things, very innovative things at Suffolk. So what are some of the challenges with integrating technology within the industry and within businesses?
Yeah, I think sometimes we forget about the human factor and the cultural shift that needs to come with these changes and doing things. And we saw that particularly in New York around safety a number of years ago, where we decided as an industry that everyone goes home safely, that no accident is acceptable. And you saw the emergence of the cocoons, particularly in Manhattan. And I think that in that change, we needed as an industry to significantly invest in ushering that cultural change within our businesses, the industry, and on an individual level. And some people got left behind. Some people were just not able to make that shift. They said, we've been doing it this way forever. I don't understand why we need to change. And we just doubled down as an industry and said, this is what we're doing. And I think, that was successful because people realized the human factor and needing to do that right culturally. And so with technology, I think that there's a similarity there. We can't forget the human factor, the cultural change, and all the other kind of components that we need to take care of as we make this change. Along with that, right, I've always wanted to position myself and my firm as a trusted advisor to my clients, right? We can't be adding technology for the sake of technology. We need to make sure that it's always externally focused and benefiting our clients, right? So we need to take the clients on this journey and make sure that they feel like they are in tune with the industry and what's going on, and that they are investing and paying for technology that directly benefits them, and just kind of staying connected that way with our clients.
Alexis, that's a great point that you brought up about safety, right? And how it's become the new normal. So with technology, how do you accomplish this? Or better yet, if I'm an owner or perhaps a developer, why would I want to do this?
I think investing and doing it right the first time is important. 10 or 15 years ago when BIM was new in the market, what we were saying is clients saying, well, I'll let you do BIM on my job, but only if you've already done it 5 times. And it was just too new. And so it was really important to make sure that everybody had a positive experience the first time around, because if the first experience was a burn, then they were like, nope, I don't want to do that again. And then getting them to agree to it or to embrace the new technology a second time around was a much harder battle. I think investing and doing it right the first time will pay off in dividends, to make sure that people don't have a negative experience with it. And that doesn't mean that it can't fail. We need to, make sure that R&D is no longer a dirty term in our industry, right? And not every test and pilot can be a success, but everyone should see the value in it and be able to get significant learnings from it in order to move forward and not just, have a bad experience and then dismiss it.
So Alexis, you mentioned having good experience and you wanting to make sure that people are on board with that. If I'm an owner, what am I looking for in all this? What is the number one thing that I would want to see?
Well, I think, to use a cliche term that I think is very valuable, I'll begin with the end in mind. You need to be talking with the end user and kind of define your ultimate goals and then kind of work upstream from that. And I think around that, a trusted advisor or a good consultant around data standards and what data that you would actually like to use and how you'd like to use it is pretty key. Being a builder, while we were stretching, around being the builder to both ends at the beginning, the origination and then the management of a facilities management, we can only do so much as a builder if you don't have good data standards. And it's not really set up in the United States yet. So be mindful and thoughtful of how you're going to use your data and what data you need, because too much data is unusable, right? And then you don't want to go back later and realize that you missed some type of parameter that you'd like to be tracking and utilizing in the future.
All right. So Alexis, if our viewers didn't know, you and I actually had the privilege of working together in our past lives at Lend-Lease. And from my perspective, it always felt like you were on the cutting edge of all things, whether it was leading the BIM charge or being very innovative or even just being that female powerhouse and that female role model that I had. So, I'm just curious, and I have to ask, did you have a mentor along the way? Was there someone that helped guide you in your career, similar to how, I viewed you as a strong woman in leadership and quite frankly, as a mentor as well?
Yes. And thank you. That was extremely flattering. Yes, absolutely. Right. Mentorship is crucial. It's not a nice to have, it's a need to have. One of my first project managers was a woman in the DC area, Michelle Clark. She just was extremely thoughtful and didn't try to kind of be someone that she wasn't. She was not trying to be too masculine and not kind of hiding behind her femininity. She was just kind of very straightforward, very smart, very thoughtful, very good example to look to as how to kind of maneuver as a woman in project management. On the tech side, my first manager was Ryan Trinidad, who was just really, really smart and generous with his time. And then, for the last 8 years, I've worked for Ralph Esposito, who's the president of the Northeast at Suffolk Construction. And again, just extremely generous with his time, but so intuitive about the market, so smart and just comprehensive in how he approached problems. He always understood like the financial, the business, the human factor, and how things would kind of play out. So just extreme kind of, foresight into decision making. And, just been, my husband and I joke, I've just been very blessed with great mentors in my career.
It's interesting you say that, Alexis, because as a younger professional myself, mentorship is everything, right? You're new, you're still learning, you're always learning, right? But especially in the beginning, you're really trying to find those leaders and learn what they learned, right? That be a sponge. So our young listeners or our younger professionals, or actually really anyone is listening right now, what would be something you would suggest for them when looking for a mentor?
Sure. Well, the first thing that I tell the leadership at my company is always mentor someone who doesn't look like you, right? I think it's just a little too easy to mentor someone who looks like you or your kid or has the same alma mater. And I think for people underrepresented in our industry, women and people of color, we need some help there. So I always try to go, step outside what feels like your comfort zone and find a partnership in that way. For the younger people, I would always say mentorship is a two-way street. How can you might not think you can help someone at that level, but you can. I can't tell you how many times I've, was asked, hey, Alexis, can you help me download this on my phone? It seems silly, but the fact that I can provide any kind of value to these senior leaders whose time is so limited and so precious, just recognize that the time that they're giving you is really priceless. And any way that you can kind of give back, is greatly appreciated.
No, I think that's such great advice for anybody, regardless of what stage they are in their career. So, turning to just a slightly different topic, what would you say gets you most energized when you're at work and what you're doing?
Every day is different. One of my many shortcomings is that I get bored extremely quickly, and I don't get bored in this job and in this industry. Every day is very challenging. It's a complex puzzle to solve with tons of inputs that you need to manage and balance out. And it's dynamic. It's moving all the time. It's changing. And actually, I was talking with a good friend of mine who's in another industry, kind of describing to her a challenge that I was working through. And she stopped me and was like, why do you work in this industry? And she caught me off guard. And I paused and I immediately just what came to my mind was because it's really hard. And I just really find the challenge of all these puzzles motivating and fascinating and just constantly stimulating.
No, I think you're spot on. It's so dynamic. It's challenging, right? No day is like the last day. So I love that. I can totally relate. So on this show, right, we love to give our audience some takeaways. With regards to innovation and in the construction industry or development industry or even women in leadership, what would your three takeaways be?
Sure. I think three takeaways around innovation and construction. One would be we need to innovate around contracts, liabilities, model sharing, sharing of digital assets. So often we have all this amazing brain power in the room coming up with great ideas. And then as that kind of funnels down to contracts and waivers, everything kind of falls into status quo in the way that we've been doing things. So this is my call out to our legal friends, help us. And that leads me to the model will be a contract document. That's certainly happening in spaces, but it will move to an industry standard. So I challenge everyone, what are we doing as an industry to get us there? And then also, I mentioned earlier, innovation needs to be a pathway. It can't be a nights and weekends job. And I think we've recognized that. I think 5 or 10 years ago, this was a really difficult conversation, but we need to deploy when you deploy a new process and technology, like I mentioned, you're better off doing it right the first time so that you don't lose your audience and create a more difficult uphill battle for you in the next deployment.
Yeah, I think those are fantastic takeaways. Thank you so much for sharing that with our viewers. So I'm curious, and I'm sure our listeners are as well. What would be one thing that our listeners would be surprised to learn about you?
Well, I'm a certified yoga instructor. I don't teach anymore, but I practice regularly. And it's a big part of my life. And I guess personally, my one takeaway, hopefully, from this would be go take a yoga class, everyone. You will be a better human for it, no matter what kind of yoga it is.
Alexis, are you solving puzzles while doing the yoga in your brain, or do you actually tune out the puzzles for that hour?
That's the one time to tune out the puzzles and just exist.
Okay. That's great. All right. And so, just reminding everyone, we are taking a bite out of women in leadership today with a focus on technology. With that in mind, Alexis, we're going to get into a quick speed round. We're going to ask you a couple quick questions. So you ready?
Sure.
All right.
All right. So with the women on leadership side, what do you think is the most significant barrier for female in leadership roles?
Well, being a mother myself, I would say that mothers and fathers are not yet workplace equals entirely. Mothers typically still shoulder more childcare and household responsibilities. Just for everyone to still be mindful of that.
Alexis, in what areas of your professional life do you find that you're still growing?
I am forever the student. That's it, period. I'm always growing. I'm always looking for new puzzles and always try to be the humble student.
What is a leadership lesson that you've learned that's unique to being a female leader?
Be yourself. Our industry needs your unique voice, and it'll add vibrancy to the internal company culture.
So, Alexis, I always like to ask our guests this. Is there a question that we didn't ask you today that we should have asked you?
Sure. Well, Valerie touched on this about how women are underrepresented in the industry. And another reason why I came to work for Suffolk is John Fish's and Suffolk's commitment to rebuilding the ratio. That's our internal campaign to increase Suffolk employment of women in our business 10% in the next 10 years. And we do that, right, by supporting young women in STEM programs, making sure from high school, college, university, that they understand that there's a career path for them and supporting them there, as well as our involvement with new. So non-traditional employment for women, which supports women in the trades, It's something that I firmly believe in. There's a lot of STEM classes I had at college where I was the only female. And so from that perspective, you kind of look up and go, am I doing the right path here? Am I picking the right career path? So we just want to make sure that we are supporting from an early stage and that women understand that there's a place for them here.
I love that. And you know what? I mean, we've talked a little bit about mentorship, but really it sounds like you and your team it's not just talking the talk, but it's walking the walk, right? It's making a commitment and putting in those mentorship programs in place to make sure that we're pulling everyone up with us. So that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
That's great. All right. So Alexis, we always like to wrap things up. This is the Building Bites. That is BIM insurance technology with the experts. You are the expert. But we always like to ask our guests, what are you taking a bite out of today? I'm super excited because I know you're in the city. I'm in New York City. So I'm like, which one's it going to be? There's so many great restaurants, so many great things. What is the number one thing for you to take a bite out of?
Sure. So come back to New York. Come to one of our great restaurants. We're coming back strong. Let's help our restaurant friends. But there's actually a place around the corner called Beyond Sushi, which is vegan sushi, which sounds very strange. And I certainly am not a vegan, but it's wonderful. And I have a coworker, her and I go there about once a month and just try to catch up on all things outside of work and eat some really good New York food.
That sounds awesome.
That sounds delicious. I will definitely have to check that out the next time I'm in New York. So, Alexis, thank you so much for chatting with us today. If our listeners want to hook up with you and learn more about what you're doing at Suffolk Construction, where can they find you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from everyone and hopefully meet some people in the city in person.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to The Building Bite. This podcast has been brought to you by Proactive. Check us out on thebuildingbite.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on social media for all future The Building Bite news and updates. You can also find us on your favorite apps, including Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Amazon. If you have ideas for episode topics that we should cover on the show, or you know somebody who would be a perfect guest, let us know at connect@thebuildingbite.com.